Yo, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of the Shooter Straight Podcast. I'm your co-host Zach.
I'm your co-host G.
Welcome back to episode 32. First and foremost, we wanted to thank everyone for all the previous support we've been getting on every other previous episode, the YouTube Shorts, the Reels, the TikTok, the Instagram, everything. And we'd also like to thank our special guest we had on last episode, Adam. And if you haven't checked out that episode, check it out. And then come back to this one because this one we're going to be getting into some really hot topics, such as the knockout stage prediction that we've been talking about for so many episodes here. But before we get into that, G, any words you'd like to say?
No, absolutely. We appreciate everything, man. And, we want your guys' engagement. We got all the tags to all our social medias in the description below. Just go down there, find us anywhere, DM us, anything, comment all our things. We want to hear from you guys. We want to have that engagement, and want to hear back from y'all. And while you're down there, hit that subscribe button. It's free. Hit the like button as well. And I mean, that's all I got for that.
Yeah, we're at 355 subscribers right now. We appreciate the continued support we've been getting on that front. And, we're currently on the road to 1,000. So hit that subscribe button, like G said, because why not? It's free, helps us
It's
out.
free. Come on.
Come on, you know what I mean? Like, there ain't no reason not to, especially if you like some of these takes that we're going to be giving out today and some of these predictions we're going to be giving. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that.
Let's get right into it.
Obviously, the World Cup is it's been in full swing, but now we are entering the meat and potatoes. But the group stage is officially over, and for what it was a great group stage, I would say. Before we get into some of our flops and surprises and big players that have surprised us, overall, I would just like to say that I think this was a fabulous group stage. It was a World Cup so far that you can't really predict. There's been upsets everywhere, and some breakout players and breakout managers and some players that have really put themselves on the map, and G, before we get into what we think about the group stage, any words you would like to say about it?
Yeah, I think with what's happening in football, it's been really hard to kind of predict like where things are going to go, just because a lot of the favorites are not playing like favorites, like teams that have pedigree in this competition. You don't see that really, the entire world is starting to catch up, and it's really noticeable. And like these guys, because you have to think about some of these teams that we've never really fancied against, maybe the upper echelon. They've been playing in the same country in the same leagues forever, so they kind of have a more of a chemistry than some of the other like big teams, as in we're gonna get into it like Germany and such, who have spectacular players, but not every single one. They're kind of spread out everywhere, so it could be a little difficult to translate that chemistry. But I think it was a great group stage. I mean, a couple nil-nils, but that's happened in every single competition. But I think it's been good fun, and I'm really excited for the round of 16.
Yeah, I mean, who isn't? Well, unless your team was knocked out, then
Unless
obviously,
you're Italy or some shit,
yeah, then
they
you're
just
already
didn't
not
make it
looking
at
forward
all.
to it. But for the most part, I think I can agree with what you were saying. That maybe there was a little bit too many nil-nils, for the average viewer. But
Yeah,
some of the nil-nils were pretty entertaining. At the same time, it was just I think we've been seeing solid defense, and I think the fact that this World Cup was played or is being played in the winter compared to the summer, in the middle of the season, I think that it's having an effect. I don't really know exactly what that effect is per se, if in a good or bad way, because there's no sample size for this. This is the first time it's ever
yeah.
happened. But I think it is playing an impact in some ways, and I think we're seeing, like you said, the chemistry coming in. But I also think that now that 3 games have been played for every team that's made it this far, we're gonna see the best of the best from here on in, and I think that's why we love the knockout round. We always do, and I think this is why some of the best football of the whole tournament is gonna be played now.
Absolutely, I would have to agree.
But in our group stage recap, I think the first thing we would like to hit on is the flops of the tournament. And in every big tournament, whether it's the Champions League or the World Cup, whatever, there's always going to be teams that flop, players that don't perform as well as we expect. And this tournament was no different. And I'll give this one to you first as I'm introducing it. Who was your flop of the tournament so far?
This one for me came down to two teams. It came down to a team that I really felt that could go pretty far in this competition was Uruguay. I mean, they really shocked me even today, because I expected them to possibly even win the group. Even before on here, I said I was dicey about choosing Portugal to go first, even though they ended up doing it. I always thought Uruguay is a tough nosed team. They play well, good defense, and they always seem to be somewhat good in attacking. But this tournament, they've been dreadful. It took them 3 games to score 1 goal, and but the other team that edged them out was for me Germany. Germany have been just an absolute shambles. It's a disaster what's going on in Germany right now in regards to football. Like 2 back-to-back World Cups where they haven't made it out of the group. It's after, coming off a World Cup win. It's it's head scratching. I don't quite understand what's going on. I think they're right now a bit in a transition stage. They still have a lot of aging players and they have a lot of young players because you read off the roster, they have a very, very good roster. I mean, looking into it going before into the World Cup, the betting odds got released and I saw them way low and I was like, if I was a betting man, this might be a little bit of sleeper team. But after this, I was like, oh my god, I don't I don't get how because you see players like Joshua Kimmich, you see Goretzka, you still have Manuel Neuer. I mean, you have Leroy Sané, you have Serge Gnabry. These are great players, and I don't understand what's really not clicking exactly. Because I mean, when I think Joshua Kimmich is one of the best midfielders in the world, and he's just kind of been he hasn't been there. I couldn't notice him playing at all, and his entire team has just looked uncharacteristics of the Germany teams that we've known before. So to me, with going out of the group stage of the last World Cup and then going out again in this one, they easily are the biggest disappointments of this entire World Cup because I fancy them to at least make it out the group. But I mean, there's only so far your pedigree can take you in. I mean, it's shown in their group.
100%. Obviously, I have Germany on my list of flops as well. I figured that between both of us, we were gonna get Germany out of here. But another team I would like to, you also pointed out Uruguay, who also were on my list of flops. They have, and I was with you coming into the tournament. I expected Uruguay to finish second in the group, just as you did. But I thought, just like you did, that they were going to be able to contend for first place potentially. I thought it was going to come down to that Uruguay versus Portugal match. Whoever got a result there was going to win the group, and I thought it was going to be very dicey, very close. But in all 3 games, Uruguay, they just didn't prove that
They couldn't score realistically. I mean,
they
what their biggest problem was they couldn't score.
and it's not even just that. They didn't have control of games, and you would think with some of these, world-class players that they have, they still have Darwin Núñez, as a striker, and they still
And
have
he was projected to have a big tournament, and
he was,
God,
he
I mean,
was,
I think in total tournament, he only had 5 shots
and
in the
obviously
entire
no
tournament.
goals, obviously
No
no goals.
goals. I mean, Uruguay's main problem came down to their best player being Fede Valverde. I mean, there's only so much a midfielder can do for you. I mean, if you look through most of the games they played, their best chances created came from Fede Valverde. I mean, their best chances to score, other than the last game against Ghana, was Fede Valverde. I mean, he was miles ahead the best player, but realistically, that's not gonna a midfielder being your best player isn't gonna be enough to take you out of your group. I mean,
But
we've
yeah,
seen it, yeah, with like maybe strikers like Lewandowski, like maybe they can somewhat squeeze you by, but with how aging this team is, I mean, Cavani's basically at like 60, man. Like, and Suarez, dude, he looks like a bus. He just doesn't really
well,
move no more. And
that's what I was gonna
yeah,
say. I think
yeah,
that obviously Darwin Núñez is still a good player. Don't get me wrong. Just because he
I
didn't have
think
a
he's
great
really good.
tournament, that doesn't really mean anything going forward in his career. But the problem with Uruguay is that they just weren't creating the chances. They didn't really give them service. And that's something that you've seen, with Poland, for example. They didn't give Lewandowski the service. But even when Uruguay did get the ball up the field, you're pretty much just hoping Darwin can do something. And Darwin's not the type of player to take you on and drive and be able to smoke, 3, 4 players. He's not Messi. And we saw it a little bit today against Ghana. This was probably the best I've seen Suarez play in 2 years. I don't know. In a way, he turned back the clock. And he was creating some chances, and he played quite well today against Ghana. But in the previous 2 games, first of all, he got dropped for the second game. But the first game he
Hmm.
played, he was just non-existent. He got hooked, pretty much in the 60th minute because he was having an absolute disaster class because he's washed. And the same thing you could say with Cavani, he's washed. So you get the ball up there, they're just going to lose the ball. They can't score, they can't create enough chances. Their winger, their play, from the wide was just not there.
Yeah,
And
they're
you
playing
can't play.
Darwin Nunes at the wing.
And yeah, and then they transformed into a 3-5-2, and that didn't quite work because they still couldn't get them the service. And ultimately, the only competent winger that they had probably was Fede Valverde, but they can't play him on the wing because they need him in the
He's already
center.
playing midfield. Yeah, he's already
And
playing
so you
midfield.
can't play Fede Valverde everywhere. He can't play wing, defense, striker. You're asking this guy to do it all. And he just can't do that. He's not that, no one can do that. Not even Messi.
No one could do. Yeah, no one
Nobody
could
can
do
do what Uruguay was asking Fede Valverde to do. And that ultimately led to their demise. They just didn't have the quality. And then ultimately, their defense was supposed to be the main part of this team, but they just couldn't stop them enough. Obviously, when you can't score at all, you pretty much have to be flawless. And there were just a few mistakes here and there that ultimately led to their demise. But also, so that's obviously Uruguay, they flopped. And it just, I thought that they were going to be, going into the round of 16 playing Brazil right now. And they would have been giving Brazil a run for their money. But obviously,
Yeah, I thought so as well. But
obviously, that just was not the case. And
I think you had another team there, right? After you finish this point, but I think
for sure. So before I get into another team, I would just like to say I agree with your Germany points. Looking at this Germany squad, it's kind of mind-boggling to a certain extent how they weren't able to do more. Considering the fact that all they had to do was get a result against Japan and then beat Costa Rica, which they were able to do. Pretty much it just came down to getting a result against Japan. And obviously, we're going to talk about Japan in a little bit here. They surprised a lot of people, but this is no disrespect to them. But you would expect on paper Germany to be able to take care of business and at least get a draw. But ultimately, that just isn't, what happened. They were able to get the draw against Spain, which is probably what you wouldn't have expected. But you expect them to be able to get a better result against Japan. And if they were able to do that, they would have been going through right now. Their problem, I think, for me, was obviously they still have a solid midfield and they still have a very solid defense, even though it's not quite as strong as it's been in the past. The defense is still solid, but ultimately they just don't have that number 9 right now. Thomas Muller is great, but they're playing Thomas Muller as a pure number 9.
No, Muller's about as old as Suarez.
He's
it's
never
kind of the same
been
thing as playing Suarez up front, man.
But I mean, Muller, he still contributes to Bayern Munich, so he's not quite at that Suarez level.
I think he's a bit washed.
Nah, he's not washed.
Suarez
is washed. Muller contributes and he's still able to get assists and he can still contribute. But the problem is they're playing him as a lone number 9. And Thomas Muller, come on, at this age, first of all, for Bayern, he doesn't even play like that. He's more of an attacking midfielder. So you're basically playing an attacking midfielder at striker, hoping that he's going to be your talisman and bag the goals. And that just wasn't going to work. They just didn't quite have enough oomph going forward, and you would expect, given the dynamic wingers, they would have been able to do better, but they just didn't. And then, Hansi Flick, I rated him very highly. He won titles with Bayern Munich. He won a Champions League. And I thought, him going in to be the Germany manager was going to be able to change things. But he just made some head-scratching decisions. You're over here. Joshua Kimmich, I think, is the best midfielder on that team, one of the best midfielders in the world. And they played him at right back for this final game.
Yeah, I feel like at that point they were kind of just experimenting because it kind of wasn't working before. I mean,
but
it's kind of he was grasping for straws at that point.
And obviously they were able to get the win, but it's Costa Rica, at the end of the day. So, with Germany, it's not crazy that they went out in the group, but obviously given the fact that it's Germany and their pedigree and the names that they have, you would still expect them to be able to go through it some way, even if it's just second place. So obviously that's a flop. But since you harped on Germany and Belgium, I'm just going to go ahead and say my overall flop, and you probably can expect this. It's got to be Belgium.
Yeah, you messed up a little bit. You said I harped on Germany and Belgium. I said Belgium, Uruguay, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
Belgium. I didn't even realize I said that, but yeah, my flop of the tournament has to be Belgium because you said Germany and Uruguay. Belgium, although for me coming into the tournament, we didn't expect them to be as good as they were in 2018, maybe not even 2014. They were a little bit past their prime, for this golden generation. We still expected them to be able to get out of this group, and we still expected them to play better than what they did. And obviously, they had a lot of controversy. They were mid group stage when they still had a chance. They're over here saying, that they're too old and they can't do it, and they're having locker room disputes. There was a lot of weird things coming out of this Belgium camp that obviously you could kind of get the feeling they weren't going to make it out at that point. But coming into the tournament, on paper, they still have quality players. They still had Romelu Lukaku, who was kind of unfit. And obviously, we saw what happened in this final game. Jesus, that was one of the worst performances I've ever seen.
Oh my God.
On paper, he's quality. And then you still have Kevin De Bruyne. You still have quality players, Thibaut Courtois. You still have Jan Vertonghen at the back. And you still have Thorgan Hazard. You still have his brother, Eden, who, he's lost.
You said Thorgan before Eden. But,
because
that's just how it is.
At this point, that's what it is for him. That's
Jesus, man. I don't. Yeah.
But, they're not quite what they were in the past. They have an aging squad in general, but you still expect them to be able to do better than what they did. They just needed to get a point against Morocco. They needed to take points off Morocco, and they would have been going through, and they weren't able to do that. And obviously, Morocco impressed a lot of people. But on paper, this Belgium team should have been done. They should have been doing better. They had a proven coach in Roberto Martinez. They had Thierry Henry as assistant coach, and he said that this Belgium squad was gonna be able to do something. He said it multiple times. Obviously, that wasn't the case. You know, I expected them to do better, and I expected them to be better defensively than what they were. And part of that was because I think they have the best goalkeeper in the world, or one of it, if they're not the best, with Thibaut Courtois. I picked him to win the Golden Glove because I thought they would go far enough and he would get enough clean sheets. But obviously that didn't happen because, they're not going far. And I think, this golden generation for Belgium, it's officially over.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they weren't able to ever get a trophy with this golden generation. And let's be honest, I'm not going to say, never want to say ever, but for the most part, you doubt Belgium will ever get this type of squad again. With so many world-class players. We're talking Kevin De Bruyne, even right now at this very moment, is probably the best midfielder in the world. And they still have a world-class number 9, even though he
He didn't play like it.
he
He
had
didn't
a
play like a
disaster
World Cup
class, but
number 9.
he's still class
Hall
at
of
the end of
shame.
the day. And they still have quality players. They have Trossard, who was on great form in the Premier League, and he kind of came out of nowhere. They still have a lot of quality in this team, the best goalkeeper in the world. It is ultimately over. And it's quite sad in a way because you would have expected at some point, whether it's the Euros or the World Cup, that Belgium would have been able to get silverware, and they just weren't ever able to put it all together. And this was
Yeah.
the last hurrah, and they ultimately just failed.
The fact that they haven't even really been able to even make a final.
They haven't
I
made a
mean,
final, yeah.
it's crazy because not no, you're counting Euros and the World Cup because I mean, I think when I think back at the 2018 World Cup, they were probably the most unlucky team you get. They lose to the world champs. They give up one goal and that's it. I mean
Yeah.
that'll do it.
Looking back
And
on it, 2018 was their best chance.
yeah, and I mean it came down to them playing the champs, but just I think you have probably the best player, the two best players in your country's history in their primes at the same time. I mean Kevin De Bruyne, Eden Hazard, and then you have a surging Romelu Lukaku, and you still have a Yannick Carrasco, and you have a Thibaut Courtois. You have these players, and they get a bit unlucky. It's probably the most it's probably just I think it comes down to just being more unlucky than them just not being good enough because I think they're far way
In the
good
past,
enough.
I would agree.
Yeah, in the past, not right now, no, absolutely not. But because just everybody in the team is just way too old, man. It's just how it is. I mean, what really drove them in 2018 was Eden Hazard. I mean, this one he's washed.
Non-existent.
he's just horrible. But I mean, that's besides the point for this year. I mean, this year I thought they'd be good enough just to get by. I didn't have them going very far.
No. I think yeah.
If they could have, I mean, like it's one of those things to where if things were clicking, yeah. I mean, Romelu Lukaku, I mean, before this, I thought he's. I mean, on paper, he's a very good striker. I mean, he's very physical, a real poacher, but
Can hold up the
he
ball well.
he wasn't poaching very much. He wasn't poaching much.
He had 4 golden opportunities to poach, and he wasn't able
Yeah,
to score any of them. It's one of those things. The chances kept getting progressively worse.
yeah.
It was like he missed one, and you were like, okay, and then he got a better.
I thought he would get the next one.
He got an even better chance, and then he missed, and then he got somehow an even better chance, and he missed, and then to top it all off, he had one literally where it was harder to miss than score, and he somehow missed.
Yeah.
It was just unbelievable to see that.
And I mean, Kevin De Bruyne had a poor tournament as well. He didn't
And that's
play
what I was gonna say. He did.
to his standard. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne right now
Is the best in the world.
he's a top 5 player in the
Best,
world.
best midfielder in the world, I would say.
Best midfielder. I would say he's a top 5 player. I mean, going to the Ballon d'Or, I think he finished top 5. I mean, this is the level of this guy. I mean, he's the best player in the Premier League right now, right?
Yeah.
We're probably like competing with Erling Haaland. I expected much more from Kevin De Bruyne, but it's one of those things. It's hard for a midfielder. If a midfielder is your best player, it's hard to carry an entire team just because
It is hard.
you just it's possible, but
Like Luka Modric did for Croatia in 2018.
But on that team, everybody was playing good. Luka Modric was playing well, but they as a unit, they were a compound unit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And this Belgium team, they just weren't playing like that. I mean, it's tough to do it without Eden Hazard being that engine on the wing and Lukaku playing like playing abominable, man. He's like Hall of Shame, all-time Hall of Shame. And I mean, that's another thing. Like Thibaut Courtois is arguably their second best player. Look, you're not getting very far if your second best player is the goalkeeper, man.
Yeah.
Unless you're like your 2014 Germany. I mean, that when your entire team is so well rounded, your best player can be a goalkeeper.
Because
But
Neuer at that time was just different.
yeah, no, Neuer, like, yeah, he was like finishing top 5 in Ballon
Ballon
d'Or.
d'Or, yeah.
But like it's just not going to get by, especially in this day and age and how the game is. I mean, these teams are, they're here to play. They're not going to give you any respect just because this is Belgium's, golden generation. They have Kevin De Bruyne, they have Hazard, they have Lukaku. They don't care, and they pushed it to them, and they couldn't withstand it. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's football. That's the game.
Yeah. And looking back on it, you would have hoped that they would have been able to do more with this golden generation, but it's one of those things. We have seen it in the past. Golden generations don't always result to trophies. Look at
Yeah,
England.
like England's golden generation was Steven Gerrard,
I mean, and
Lampard,
we're
John
seeing
Terry.
we're seeing a resurgence of potentially a new golden generation. And are
It's
they going
getting
to
is it gonna get wasted,
are they going to? Yeah, that's the question. We've talked about it before on the pod. If you've listened in, last episode we talked about it. The episode before we talked about it. It's a recurring question that comes up. Is this golden generation of English talent going to go to waste? And the question, it might get answered here and it might not. It's one of those things we're going to have to continue and wait and see. England, they play on Sunday, but let's not focus on England here. My honorable mention, you kind of mentioned two teams. My honorable mention for flop of the tournament has to be Denmark. They absolutely flopped in this tournament. They finished bottom of the group.
The amount of people that chose them as a dark horse is ridiculous.
They're a dark horse to go home.
I watched so many like prediction videos leading into this World Cup, and everybody had something to say about this Denmark team. And to be fair, before this World Cup, they were a good side. I mean, they went pretty far in the Euros without Christian Eriksen, and now they got Christian Eriksen back. You would think they would rally for him because of the way he went out.
Exactly.
But,
and in World Cup qualifying, they were unbeaten.
Yeah, they were looking like this is, this could be, they could pull off a little bit maybe what Russia did in 2018, go pretty far and surprise a lot of people, but they just did the opposite. They played abominably, and then Australia like I just don't get
It's no disrespect to Australia, but if they get a result in that game, they probably go through.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how it would have finished, with them in Tunisia, because Tunisia ended up winning that game. But you can assume that if Denmark were able to pick up the points that they should have been able to pick up against Australia, no disrespect to Australia, they would have went through. And they weren't able to do it. They looked poor. This whole tournament, they were poor. And let's not act like they're a world beater side by any stretch of the imagination, but they're good enough to beat Australia. Given they have Braithwaite up top, who is a decent striker. They got Eriksen, who's playing good for Manchester United, and then he was playing good coming into the tournament. They have a very solid defense with Christensen, and they have an underrated goalkeeper, very underrated goalkeeper in Kasper Schmeichel, who is always he's always able to make great saves. He's always
been very solid.
Keep you in games. Kasper Schmeichel, he will pretty much do the fundamentals, and he will pull off some world-class saves sometimes to save a team's ass. We've seen it, countless times for Leicester City. We've seen it for Denmark. And they could have had Peter Schmeichel playing in goal, and he wouldn't have saved them. They could have had his dad, and they wouldn't have saved his dad
come down from the stands.
They just played poor, and it's kind of shocking in a way, because compared to the other teams, like Germany, they kind of had a tough group. In looking back on it, Belgium, they had a tough group. They had Morocco's a solid side, and they also had Croatia in their group. Uruguay, they had some other tough teams. This group with France and Denmark, Australia and Tunisia, it's not the best group. You would just have easily expected France and Denmark to be able to go through, because Australia, they're not a world beating side, and same thing goes for Tunisia. They're not crazy either by any stretch of the imagination. So it's just kind of shocking that they did so poor. They were only able to pick up points against Tunisia, and they got a draw. And kind of once we saw them drop points to Tunisia, I was starting to get a little bit worried about this team, because we kind of knew they weren't going to be able to beat France. And to be honest, they put up the best fight against France, which is probably the most ironic thing of this whole tournament, because they had a chance to hold that draw against France at 1-1 and potentially even win that game. And they put up a really good fight in that game. just to draw to Tunisia and lose to Australia. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher, but Denmark for sure one of the flops of the tournament. But between Germany, Belgium, Uruguay, and Denmark, that's all the flops, I think.
Yeah, I would have to agree with all that. I mean, we expected a lot more from those teams. It's just we can't. It's hard to tell in knockout games.
Yeah, well, it's the World Cup. Anything can happen. That's one of the beauties of
Yeah,
this particular World Cup. There's been a lot of upsets. We'll see if that
yeah.
continues.
But switching from probably the biggest flaps to the biggest surprises of the tournament. You know, I I think there's a lot of teams that could get this, the spot as who surprised the most. But I'll hand this one off to you first. Who surprised you the most in this World Cup so far, heading into the round of 16?
Well, they're in the same group that we just talked about as one of my biggest flops. I'm gonna have to go ahead and say that Morocco were one of my biggest surprises so far in this tournament. Morocco coming into this tournament, you would have looked at their group that had Belgium, Canada, Croatia, and you would have said, okay, well, it's probably going to be difficult for Morocco to make it out of this group. Croatia, they were the runners up in 2018. Belgium, they were on the back end of their golden generation, but they still have world class players. And Canada, they finished first in CONCACAF, coming into the World Cup. You would have expected them to do better than what they did. But given all of that, Morocco came into this tournament and they were able to top this group, and that's miraculous, to say. Morocco, they were able to get a 0-0 draw against Croatia, beat Belgium 2-0, and then get a 2-1 win against Canada. And that finishes them on 7 points top of the group. And you have to hand it to them. That was, you have to tip your cap and say, well done to Morocco. It's surprising, but the main reason why I think Morocco were able to do this, they have some quality players, but coming into the tournament, they allowed Hakim Ziyech to come back into the national team. They had some kind of dispute that wasn't allowing him to play, and he retired from international football. But they qualified for the World Cup, and Ziyech comes back, and he has had a masterclass so far in this World Cup. He scored the winning goal against Canada, and they have a couple other quality players. Boufal, Amrabat, Hakimi, obviously everyone knows from PSG, Mizraoui, who plays for Bayern Munich, Bunu. They have a lot of quality players, and it just seems as if they play well as a unit. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they do in the knockout round because they are playing Spain, I believe, and that is going to be a very intriguing game. But I would just have to say, given there's been a lot of surprises in this World Cup, but I don't think, maybe besides Morocco fans that were holding out false hope, I don't think many people had Morocco topping this group.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
And the fact that they were able to do it, you have to tip your cap. And it's one of those things. African teams, this is, I think I saw a statistic that this has been statistically speaking, the best World Cup for African teams in history. And it might be a sign of things to come where the gap is kind of closing between, teams, globally. It seems as if, the World Cup has always been a South American or European competition. That's who's going to really compete for the title. And I'm not saying that, Morocco is going to go on and win this
Yeah.
thing, but, going forward here, 2026, 2030, in the future, we might finally see somebody outside of South America and Europe win this thing because teams like Morocco are continuously getting better and they're improving. And that goes for across the tournament. We are seeing a lot more teams from outside of those countries improve. And that's one of my biggest takeaways, I would say. And I'm sure I know who you're going to say for your biggest surprise. And that's where it reiterates kind of the same point. Asian
Yeah.
teams as well, they have been doing very well in this tournament. You look at the United States, they have done very well in this tournament. But overall, for me, the biggest surprise got to be Morocco.
Yeah, Morocco were definitely up there for one of mine because I mean, in many people's mock drafts, they finished bottom of their group. I mean, and it's not crazy to say that that's outrageous to say before. I mean, hindsight now is always
I
2020,
had them
but
finishing bottom.
yeah, like I believe I had them finishing bottom as well, just because we didn't really expect this. But this is something that I harped on a little bit before that teams around the world are starting to catch up to the European giants and the South American giants. I mean, we've seen a surge of African and Asian teams, perform very well at the top level, and I think that a lot of that comes down to the fact that most of the players that play for the national team play within their own leagues in their own countries, so they know each other. The chemistry is a lot better. But my biggest surprise of this tournament was Japan. I think for what they were able to do, and they were able to come out of the group with against Spain and Germany. I thought that was a rock solid. Okay, it's 100% Spain and Germany are getting it out. And honestly, I think Japan was the best team out of this group. I mean, they played way more as a cohesive unit, even after Spain's very dominant win. I mean, they after that win, they just kind of reverted back to just looking poor. Ended up them losing the final to Japan, and Japan was just. I think most of it comes down to Japan players are just their fitness that they can go full 90. They just don't stop, and how they're more of a cohesive unit. I mean, they got great players like Kubo, Tanaki, and even their goalkeeper. I can't even say I don't know Gonda. I butchered those names. I'm not gonna act like me looking down, trying my best to say these players' names. It's gonna do them any justice. I've slandered their names, but they're playing outstanding, and they 100% deserve to make it out of this group. And it is that thing because this is the beautiful game. This is why this tournament is so important. That it's able to shine light on these teams that are finally starting to get the recognition they deserve for because they had to wait. They had to sit back all those years seeing like Brazil, Italy, Germany, all these upper echelon with the best players in the world, and now they're slowly starting to catch up. And now it's creeping, like you said, 2026 and 2030. There's a high chance that an Asian or African team could make the final and they could win it. We're gonna see these teams start to catch up, and that's why I want to give Japan all their flowers. It's incredible. This is probably the biggest thing they can hang their hat on. I mean, they make it out of the group with Spain and Germany. With
Yeah,
with the pedigree those teams have in this
they won the group.
competition, yeah. I mean, yeah, they won the group. They were able to make it out, but no one had them making out of it. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that really picked Japan to make it out, and the fact that they're able to win it, and I think they looked up the best, by far the best, even though they didn't have player for player, they weren't better than Spain. Player for player, they weren't better than Germany. But just as a unit, how they were coached, how they play, their philosophy of how they play is just impressive. And it's great to see. I love to see it.
It's remarkable to me that Japan to get out of this group, because of the way that they did it. They ended up losing to Costa Rica, who I didn't rate very very highly, all things considered. So to get out of this group, if you said that they were going to lose to Costa Rica, they would have had to beat both Germany and Spain. And nobody, and I mean nobody, would have bet on that happening. And that's exactly what happened. And you have to give a lot of credit to this Japan team because they went down 1-0 to the Spanish team. Alvaro Morata was able to get that goal. And, I thought it was kind of over for him at that point. But this Japan team, they fight and they fight for this badge. And they fight like the whole country's behind them, pushing them. And it's one of those things for the full 90, man. They just don't stop running, man. They just go, go, go. And that's hard to play against at the end of the day. They're relentless. You cannot take your foot off the gas even for a second against this Japanese team because they will make you pay. And that's exactly what happened to Spain. They had a couple lapses of concentration, and then boom, they're down 2-1. And then they were not able to break down this Japanese defense because they play a 5 at the back. And once they're able to get that lead, they are very difficult to break down at the end of the day. And they have some proven players that have done it in the Premier League, such as Yoshida. He's a Premier League proven player. And they still have, some players like Nagatomo, who's played, in I think in the Serie A. And they have Ito, who plays in Belgium. So they have quality players that play all across, quality leagues that are very good. And then, they're able to continue to improve. And I think it's remarkable that they were able to do that. So I think definitely they are a big surprise. I think an honorable mention for me, unless you had a second team, an honorable mention for me that I would actually like to point out a little bit of love to. We've talked about them before. Obviously, we've shown our credit to them, but a surprise, not for making it out necessarily, but a surprise just because of how they've played is the United States.
Oh God.
Well, and look,
Yeah.
you have to give them credit just for how quality I think they've been, and mark my, or what is it, bite my tongue or whatever. Like this could end up coming back to bite me in the ass. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Because the United States, they literally play tomorrow
They
morning.
play tomorrow. By the time this is up, it's gonna be like that. The game's hours away.
Exactly. So like, kind of my point with this is believe it or not, and not maybe not a lot of people would have expected this. I give the United States a good chance of performing in this game and potentially getting the win. I mean, I picked them to win. We've talked about we previewed the game. That
Mhm.
clip is up on the channel if you want to go check that out. But this whole tournament, they had a look. They had an amazing first half against Wales where they completely dominated, and this was their first ever World Cup game for 99% of these players except for one, which was DeAndre Yedlin. So we did not know what to expect. This was the first time head coach and Greg Berhalter had no World Cup experience, and then a bunch of youngsters. The youngest or second youngest squad in the tournament. We didn't know what to expect, and they have done nothing but prove themselves every single game. They were able to get a 0-0 draw and dominate the game against England. They should have won. And then in a winner take all game against Iran, they were able to get that goal and then show the quality to not allow them, Iran, to get that goal to send them through. They were able to lock it down on the back end, with the defense. And that's where this team has been so good. They have not allowed a goal in open play this whole tournament. They're the only team in the whole World Cup to have not allowed a goal in open play so far. And that's a remarkable stat. The only goal they've conceded was the penalty
The
to
penalty.
Wales, and that was just a bad foul to give. It was one lapse of concentration by Walker Zimmerman was the only goal they've conceded, and it was a pen. So this United States team has proven now that they are very difficult to beat and break down defensively. And that's also not only because of their defense, which has been good, but their midfield trio. And I harp on them, I think, every episode. This midfield trio of Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie, and Tyler Adams is so, so good and so, so young. They are going to be beasts for years to come, whether it's for club and also for country. They are going to do amazing things. I would be very, very shocked if Tyler Adams did not get a big money move to a bigger club than Leeds United. And also Yunus Musa, I would be very shocked if he wasn't getting looked at from very much so bigger clubs than where he's at now because of how good they've been playing in this World Cup. And you just have to kind of tip your cap because we knew they were good, but we didn't know how they were going to be able to perform on the world stage. And they've done nothing but prove themselves to everybody. And even if they do lose to a very good Dutch side tomorrow, they've proven to me, and I think to a lot of the world, that the United States has finally got something going here with the national team. And they might not win the World Cup the next time, or they might not, they might not do anything like that. But I think they're finally proving themselves as a side that you can't just push them over and say, "Oh, it's the United States." They're actually competent soccer wise now. They have a good squad for years to come, and the only
Football
thing
wise.
their only thing they're missing is a number 9. And you would
That's it,
have
yeah.
to anticipate that by the time the next World Cup cycle comes around in 2026, they got 4 years to find a striker.
4 years.
They got
Get
4
somebody.
years, they got 4 years to find a striker. So, I back them to do that. And plus, they are automatically qualified for the next tournament. So they don't have to worry about
There's
so
no missing it. Yeah, there's
there's
no
no
missing
missing it.
it.
They're automatically qualified. So I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow for the United States, but even if they go out, they've proven themselves to me, and I think a lot of other people.
Yeah, I mean, I had them up there as well. I mean, they've played very well, like you said. They haven't conceded a goal in open play. No other team has done that, and I think they've definitely impressed. I mean, coming off missing the World Cup last year, a lot of people didn't really expect much from the United States, but now they have a real 50-50 chance to get through against the Netherlands. I have them winning. I have them winning, going through on pens.
Yeah, me too.
But I think they've definitely surprised a lot of people, and perhaps they had to do something, to give North America a bit of a push, since North American teams didn't do very well. I mean,
Yeah.
two of them didn't make it out of the groups, and United States was the only one to survive.
Yeah.
But
And I totally forgot about Mexico, but they could
yeah,
have probably could have been in flops as well, but I don't know. I didn't expect them
I
to.
mean, yeah, I expected them to maybe get second in the group. You didn't expect them to get out of the group
Yeah,
at
I
all.
remember. Yeah, I didn't expect it. Yeah,
So
it was a tough group,
yeah, it's a tough group. So
but it was remarkable to me because Tata Martino got sacked instantly after the game.
instantly, yeah, no, I deservingly. I mean, the
Yeah,
foot the football he had them playing out there was abominable. I mean,
yeah.
it's absolutely dreadful.
To be honest, I saw some Mexican fans saying, "Kick him off the plane, leave him in Qatar."
Even with Qatar can have him, dude. Yeah, nah, he played absolutely horrible. No, he didn't play. I mean, he probably should have been playing. Maybe he would have been better. Maybe if he was out there playing. But just how he set up this team, he set him up for failure. And
He did.
it's fully fair that the
The only
Mexican
somewhat
fans were not happy with how they were playing. You sacked the manager. I mean,
the only
that's
somewhat
what has
good
to
game they
happen.
played was against Saudi Arabia, where and they that was the only game they were able to score in.
Yeah,
Yeah, Tata had them playing anti-football.
I really thought they were gonna go a World Cup without scoring at all. That would have been,
That would have
oh
been
my
well,
god. But yeah,
that would have been even worse than it already was,
yeah,
but for Mexico too, they had a streak of, like, 7 consecutive World Cups of making it out the group, so
yeah, and it
it's
finally
finally
broke
has
it.
ended, and
Finally ended it. But
it is what it is.
heart now enough talking about these scrub bad teams that haven't made it through the round of 16. Let's start talking about the round of 16 and doing our re basically our repicks. I mean, we got a couple wrong during our
Of course.
early ones, but now we're gonna somewhat try and rectify and see maybe we can get a couple things more correct and see how far we can get it. So, without further ado, round of 16 World Cup Qatar 2022 predictions. I'm going to give this off to you first. Who do you have? You just go through your entire
The entire
bracket. I think
bracket?
we'll do it like that. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
go through the bracket like that.
Okay. So, I'll go ahead and start off with the first match that is taking place tomorrow morning, after we record this. The Netherlands playing against the United States. And as I've said in the previous episodes, I have the United States winning this game. I think it's going to be very tight. It's going to be an ugly game, but they are going to be able to go through. And then in the other game, Argentina play Australia, and I think that's pretty straightforward. It's cut and dry. Argentina are going to go through quite comfortably in that game. So
Okay.
then Japan play Croatia, and we talked about Japan as a surprising team, and Croatia obviously as the runners up in 2018. They have somewhat high expectations. I think that even though Japan have impressed a lot of people and they really do fight for the badge, I just have to give the pedigree of Croatia and give that. I think that's going to help this Croatian team in this big moment, and I have to give the edge to Croatia. I think that could be a game that goes to extra time or something like that. But give me Croatia getting the win. Then Brazil versus South Korea. I have to give the edge towards Brazil here just because they did lose today to Cameroon, but that was the B team. They were resting some players. Give me Brazil to bounce back and win. Then England plays Senegal. This is going on to the other side of the bracket. England plays Senegal.
Mm-hmm.
England, as we talked about, I think England are going to revert back to a bad lineup, in my opinion, with Mason Mount in it, but they are still able to find a way to get a win. Then France
Yeah.
play Poland. We talked about this one as well. France are going to absolutely dominate this game, in my opinion. It's not really going to be close. It's another cut and dry game. Give me France. And then I think this might be one of, if not the matchup of the round of 16, Morocco versus Spain. Morocco have very much so impressed. And Spain, even though they did finish second in the group to Japan, they were still impressive, in many ways. Give me Morocco to move on to the quarterfinals in this game. Spain get bounced out in the round of 16. I've been very impressed by Morocco. They were my most impressive team of the group stage. So then the final matchup of my round of 16, Portugal and Switzerland. I have to back Portugal here. I think Switzerland, they're a good team, but Portugal have been looking dangerous for me. They're looking very, very good. And it's not just because of Cristiano Ronaldo, which has, like it's been in the past. They have a very well-balanced team, and they have some super subs such as Rafael Leao, who are great players, obviously. So then moving
Yeah.
on to the quarterfinals, USA would be playing Argentina in this prediction. And look, I love the United States, but I think this is where it
I think the
ends
dream has
for
to
us.
die. This one's that would be a really weird game for you, just because I mean it's United States. I mean the home versus the team you've picked to win it all. So it's kind of like,
Yeah,
oh shit.
it would be
But
tough.
yeah,
But I have to back Argentina to get the win against the United States. And to be honest, I'm just going to put this out there. Even if the Netherlands do get past the United States, I would have Argentina beating the Netherlands as well. I just wanted to say that. But I still think the United States are going through. So then in my other quarterfinal matchup on that side of the bracket, it would be Croatia playing Brazil. And I think this would be a very, very good game. It would be very close. Croatia are a very good side. They don't quite have that one. They have Luka Modric, but they don't have the superstars of Brazil. But they're a well balanced, cohesive unit. But I have to back Brazil. I think that they are just too much to handle for this Croatian team if it comes down to it. So give me Brazil to go through. And then what a game this would be. The matchup of the quarterfinals. I pray to God that it does happen. England versus France. This would
Oh
be an
God.
amazing game. Yeah, well, on paper, it would be an amazing game, but knowing Garrett Southgate, it might be like my eyeballs might be turn to fire watching it. You don't want to watch it, but I'm gonna have to back France to kick out England of the tournament. It would be disappointing for England to go out in the quarterfinals, to be honest. But this France team is looking impressive. They have not really missed a beat. Without Conte, without Benzema, without Pogba, they have continued to look like a well-oiled machine that might go on and win it all. So that give me France, and then Portugal versus Morocco. This would be another very good game, but I think the Morocco dream ends at this point. The quarterfinals would be a great achievement for them. I think this Portugal team, like I previously mentioned, they are just looking very, very strong, and I think that they're going to make the semifinals. So moving forward, my semifinals. It is the same semifinals that I
Yeah,
picked
it's
in my pre-tournament predictions. It all kind of works out the same way. So Argentina versus Brazil. Like I said in my pre-tournament predictions, I have to back Argentina here just because they've beaten Brazil before. And to be honest, this might be a hot take, but I don't think this Brazil team has. They're a very good team, and I think they're going to be able to beat the teams that I previously said they would beat. But they are not looking as strong as people had made them out to be, in my opinion. They don't look unbeatable, and to be honest, their attack hasn't been as good as advertised. They haven't been blowing teams away by any stretch of the imagination. And their depth got him a loss against Cameroon. So let's not act like their depth is crazy good. They're going to need Neymar back and fully fit, and I don't know if that's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see. But so if this matchup happens, I back Argentina because I think that they have the confidence and they have a very strong defense to be able to hold Brazil. So Argentina make the final. And then on the other side of the bracket, a rematch of Euro 2016, France and Portugal. This is 50-50. It's a toss up. Coming into the tournament, I wasn't as high on France as I am now. And that's why I picked Portugal to get the win. But I am also higher now on Portugal than I was coming into the tournament because I think that they are looking like a well-oiled, cohesive unit. So give me Portugal to make the final, just like I predicted in the pre-match, pre-tournament predictions. Portugal knock off France, and then we get the final. This, to be honest, that's the best way to describe it. It's the final. It's the best final of all time. It is the final that would make the world stop. The world would stop spinning for this final. I think the aliens might come down to watch this game. That's how big it would be. And Argentina playing Portugal in the final and Messi versus Ronaldo. The storylines are endless. This is something that I think everyone has dreamed of. Any football fan has went to sleep and dreamed of this match happening. And I think it's going to happen. Argentina versus Portugal. Give me Argentina to get the win. Messi wins his first and only World Cup over Cristiano Ronaldo. I just think this Argentina team is the team of destiny. And even though that loss against Saudi Arabia happened, I think that honestly helped them in a way because it got that monkey off their back and it showed them that they needed to step up their game. And that's exactly what's happened ever since. And then the third place game, France versus Brazil. I would back Brazil to win that just because it's Brazil, and I think France would be disappointed to be knocked out, because they expect to go back to back, and I think Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good picks. I think mine differ a little bit, but
Mm.
I
I,
mean,
I
they
was, I was
differ just a little bit.
I'm intrigued to hear your picks.
All right, so let's go right into it. First game off the rip, Netherlands, United States. I got the United States going through on penalties. I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be an ugly game, but United States going to get it done. Argentina versus Australia. Already had this one as a bit of a wash. Argentina winning 3-0. I don't think Australia have anything to deal with the attacking force of Argentina, so give me Argentina. Japan versus Croatia. Give me Japan. I will take Japan over Croatia right now. Look, Croatia have not been that same team that we've seen. They've looked lackluster, and they look like they're aging. They're playing like an aging team. That's not what you want. What you want going against this Japan team. They're playing with the absolute most energy. Like I said, their fitness is unlike any other team right now. and I think they're just gonna outlast Croatia, and they're gonna sneak a goal right at the death. I see them scoring a winner around the 80th minute. So give me Japón
Who is Japón?
advancing. Japón is the old way, the Spanish way of saying Japan. Well, that's kind of like that. I remember that's a video. What they before it's called Japón. That's how it's supposed to be called, Japón,
Okay.
because the J is like a H. In Spanish, we call it Japón.
Okay.
That's my boys. But next round, Brazil versus South Korea. This one I think is going to be a pretty close game, more than people give it, to be fair, because
I agree with that.
Brazil have not looked like how we thought. They're lacking a real number 9. I don't think Richarlison is that guy. I just don't think he is. And
Neither
even when
Kane looks
Neymar
good.
even when Neymar has played, they just haven't looked as dominant. I know he played one game against Serbia, but they just seem just to foul him and get him off the ball. And Vinny hasn't looked spectacular, and this team has just kind of been mid. I mean, hasn't really been the Brazil that we expected, but I do have them still going through. I mean, they should have the quality to get past South Korea. So then switching to the other side of the bracket, England versus Senegal. God, England's gonna go back to playing their absolute dreadful football, but I mean they could play horrible. I think they're still gonna get by. They're gonna probably win this game. I think 1-0 is gonna be a pretty lackluster game, but I have England going through. Next one, France, Poland. It's a bit of a wash as well. I mean, Poland, if they win, it'll probably be the biggest upset in probably one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history and football history. But
Yeah, I agree
I
with that.
got I got France thrashing them. I mean, Poland can't create a chance to save their lives. Morocco and Spain. I had Morocco as well. I think the dream lives on. Spain have just looked poor. I mean, after their first dominant win, they're they're having the same problems as most other teams in the competition, lacking a true number 9. Morata, he's just not the same as he was. I mean, I liked Alvaro Morata like maybe three years ago, like as a starting striker, but he just doesn't have what this team needs, and this team's lacking wingers as well. It's a young team, but I think they just don't have the backbone to really get far in this competition. I think Morocco has everything going for them right now, so I would pick Morocco to beat Spain and advancing. Next one, Portugal in Switzerland. Portugal has been outstanding so far. I mean, other than the loss they had, I mean they had like 5 changes to their lineup, so I don't really
Very wrestling.
like take much into that game, but I think they get by this game quite easily. I think they're gonna have just too much firepower for Switzerland, so I got them going through. So now switching to the other side, United States versus Argentina. Argentina are winning. I mean, the United States dream is over, but I mean that's a win. I
It
mean
is.
they could put in the newspapers, United States a win. They make the quarterfinals, so even losing to Argentina, that's a win. But then going on to Japan and Brazil, I think that you know Japan could do it. Japan could do it. I think that's gonna also be a very close game. That's a game we could probably see go to extra time, but I'm gonna have to give it to Brazil. I mean, I would hope they'd be able to get by Japan, but you know, with how Brazil have been playing a bit lackluster, and just how well Japan's been playing, it wouldn't be completely out of the realm that I would not, be completely surprised if they get through. If I were to give it a percentage split, I give Japan a good 35 to 40% chance of getting by. I
Pretty
give
good.
them a good shot. And switching to the other side of the bracket, England versus France. Oh God, I have to watch this game. I already know. I can predict right now. Gareth Southgate's going to play 5 in the back. He's going to bring it back. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to bring it back. He's gonna shit his jocks when he has to play this France team. He's gonna be like, we just have to throw everybody behind the ball. I can guess their lineup. They're gonna move Kyle Walker back at center back. They're gonna have probably Stones, Maguire, and Kyle Walker as the center backs, and they're gonna put Trippier, and they're gonna then have who they been playing? Luke Shaw at the back, and then they're gonna have just the most park the bus garbage style and probably lose on penalties. They're probably gonna get to where Southgate's wants. Southgate's probably gonna want like a very close game, maybe taking the penalties, and they're gonna lose on penalties. So I got France advancing to the semifinals.
Hmm.
Then I got Morocco and Portugal, some similar to you, and I have that's where the dream ends. Portugal get through.
Hmm.
I have them going through. They have just way too much firepower for Morocco. I still think that's going to be a close game. I think
Yeah, I agree.
I'd give it to the same level as maybe Japan and Brazil, but Portugal just with how they have a lot of players. I think Bruno Fernandes and Bruno and Bernardo Silva in their primes right now. I would give it to them. And you have that attacking threat off the bench and Leao. I would give it to them. Going into the semifinals, same four as we had originally. Argentina, Brazil. I think got to cut right to it. Argentina are going to win. I got Argentina doing what they did in the Copa America, getting by Brazil. Brazil haven't been looking so great. Argentina have looked transformed since the Saudi loss, and they just look like they're back on that mission. So I got Argentina making the final. Then Portugal and France. Rematch of Euro 2016. This is where I differ. I thought this France team would look a lot better than where they were right now. And I think there have been chinks in this armor. I did not expect Portugal to look this great. I had Portugal going this far just because of the namesake. I didn't know how far they could really go, how well this team could play together. But they've impressed me far beyond France. And I have Portugal. I'm booking a ticket of the final of dreams. Give me Portugal beating France in the semifinal and advancing and giving us the final of of our entire existence of the human race. Give me this final that would be Argentina and Portugal. This final, there's not much that has to be said. It would be the greatest final in the history of sports. The two greatest players of all time going at it. Have we ever seen? It's like Michael Jordan and LeBron James playing in the final. It's something people would always talk about, but you'll never get to see that because those players weren't in the same generation. These two guys in the same time have always been against each other forever since the start of their career. It's always been Ronaldo versus Messi. Now they would play in the final of the world stage for their countries where it means the most. It's bigger than if they played, Real Madrid versus Barcelona in the Champions League finals because this is for their country. This is where they were born. This is where they grew up. The storylines of this final would be legendary. It would be biblical. They would have to write it in books to teach this in schools of how big this game would be. And who would win that final? I would have to still give it to Argentina. I have Lionel Messi finally getting that World Cup, and it would be over his greatest, not his greatest enemy, but his greatest rival, Cristiano Ronaldo. It'd be heartbreaking for Ronaldo, but, like how I have him, Messi's the greatest player of all time. This is what is written for him. This is his story. He's the main character. Ronaldo is an absolutely great world class, second greatest player ever, but you were born in the same generation as Lionel Messi. So it's unfortunate, but it's gonna come down to that, Messi winning. And third place I got Brazil, France. That doesn't matter. I think not France. Brazil's probably gonna win that because no one really plays that game very very seriously, but Brazil probably gonna take that. Realistically.
So we ended up having the same Final Four that we did in our pre-tournament prediction, but you went back on what you originally predicted. I remember you did say in the first time that France would get past Portugal, but this time you switched it up and said that Portugal would get by.
I
And
think
I
at the
agree with you,
time,
though.
at the time we said that, I expected Benzema would be playing, so that did play into it. I think when it comes down to the semifinals of a World Cup, it would help to have the best player in the world, in my opinion, on the team, and he just sadly, unfortunately, can't be there. So I
Yeah.
think that kind of sways it in Portugal's favor, and Portugal have been playing better than I thought they would be. I mean, Bruno
100%.
has I mean, his club form hasn't been very good, but Bruno looks brilliant. I mean, he has 2 goals, 2 assists, and he's looked like the best player in the tournament so far. I mean, competing with Mbappe as one of those guys who's just changing the game. And Bernardo Silva has been playing very well. Joao Felix has been playing good, and Lau having a goal hasn't played very much, but he's shown that when he gets subbed on, he can change the game. He plays very well. And this Portugal team, Cristiano Ronaldo hasn't been what he. I I think if Ronaldo had this team, maybe like the last World Cup, they that would have been like nightmare inducing. But
Yeah.
Ronaldo hasn't looked the exact same that he's always looked. I mean, he's aging. I mean, there's only so much he can do, but he'll be just enough, good enough to get them to the final, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think that is unless you have anything else to say about the predictions or any of these teams in particular, I think it's the perfect segue to get into a preview of the round of 16 game for Portugal.
No, yeah, let's get into it.
So obviously Portugal, like we just said in our full predictions. If anyone's watching the clip, check out our full predictions video. I'm gonna link it up. You can click on it. It's like right up here or something. But
Some
Portugal, they are playing Switzerland, and obviously, I think it's going to be a very interesting match. It's not a pushover by any stretch of the imagination. Switzerland, they were able to just beat pretty much, I think, their arch rivals, Serbia, 3-2, and that game was absolutely breathtaking to watch. Maybe one of the best games of the whole group stage. So I'll go ahead and pass this one off to you first. What do you expect for this game, given you did pick Portugal to obviously advance? So what do you expect for this game for Portugal?
I think I think it's gonna be a bit of a close game. I don't have it being as close of a game as like maybe like South Korea and Brazil, but Switzerland is no like team just like completely look over just because really every team that's made it this far has to be respected to
Hmm.
where they made. Switzerland have always been somewhat of a very solid side. They've always a solid side, and I think they're gonna push Portugal in some areas of the pitch, but I think it just comes down to the firepower and the creativeness of this Portugal team. And Bruno's been playing out of his mind. Joao Felix has been playing very solid, and I see them winning this game by a comfortable 2-0. I mean, when I think about this matchup, it reminds me of the goal that Cristiano Ronaldo scored on them in the 2016 Euros, the flick,
Hmm.
the back heel flick, and I think this team knows how to play against this Swiss side. So I think they're gonna get by 2-0.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I picked Portugal to win this game as well, so I agree with what you've been saying. I think that the Swiss team is definitely not a pushover. I think that if Portugal come out and they don't play the way that I expect them to play, Switzerland can very much so beat this Portugal team. They have some very quality players. Embolo is on very good form. Granit Xhaka, who's been on class form for Arsenal coming into the World Cup, and then so far throughout the World Cup, he's been playing good. Shaqiri turned back the clock into the old Shaqiri. He was able to get
The
a goal
Oshikiri.
against Serbia, just happened today. Shaqiri was been looking very good. They have quality players, and their midfield and attack is very strong. And even though they have Akanji who plays for Manchester City and they have a decent defense, I think that that's where this Swiss team kind of lacks because when they're going to be going against a team like Portugal, who's going to probably have more possession and they just have more firepower in the attack, with Bernardo Silva, with Joao Felix, with Bruno Fernandes, with obviously Cristiano Ronaldo, who's not quite firing like he used to, but he can always be that threat, and he's always going to be a threat. He's going to take away, your center backs. He's going to occupy their mind because in the back of their head, this is Cristiano Ronaldo. At the end of the day, you can't give this guy an inch of space because if you do, he will potentially make you pay. And obviously, that opens up so much space for the rest of this Portugal team. And I think Portugal is obviously going to have more possession, and they're going to create more chances. And ultimately, they are going to find a way to break down this Swiss team that is going to have to play a little bit more defensive than I think they'd like to. And when you consider all of that, I think Portugal, they're going to get the goals they need. And given the fact that their attack has been so lethal and so good, and this Swiss team, I think their biggest weakness is defense. I think it doesn't bode well for Switzerland, given the fact that their biggest weakness happens to be Portugal's biggest strength. So when you consider all of that, I would expect Portugal to win this game 3-1. I think that they're going to be able to, uh, just I think they're going to go up like 2-0 early on. Potentially, they're just going to kind of pound it on, and then maybe Switzerland get one back. Because they are a solid team, they're going to fight, and then ultimately, Portugal they get one late on to kind of seal the deal. I think that's what I would expect, and I would expect Bruno Fernandes to continue on his amazing form that he's had because let's be honest, so far this World Cup, he's looked like the best midfielder in the world. He's been
Yeah.
he's been looking like turning back the clock potentially to some of those Manchester United days. And
They're the early ones, yeah.
we've never quite seen this, for him in Portugal. He's never quite been the main talisman for Portugal, and that's what he's been so far. And the fact that Ronaldo doesn't have to be the best player on the field, and Portugal can still do what I expect them to do, that kind of shows how good this team is. Because you think about Portugal teams in the past, it's pretty much Ronaldo or bust. Now Portugal have so many weapons, they have so many guys at their disposal. I mean, this attack is so good that Rafael Leao is a bench. He
Yeah.
comes off the bench. That just goes to show. And I think he has a debate to be starting, but obviously Santos doesn't think he should be starting. But that kind of potentially plays in their favor because they have someone of that quality coming off the bench. If they need a goal, I trust Rafael Leao. He's so clinical in front of goal, and he is so dynamic. He's so tough to stop. But even though this Portugal attack is so good, their defense is looking very strong. I called for Pepe to get into that starting 11. Pepe,
he's played well.
He's played well. He turned back the clock, and obviously they got Ruben Diaz, they got Cancelo, and obviously Costa. He wasn't quite looking like a very good goalkeeper after that Ghana game, but he's kind of cemented himself as there's a reason why he's the starter. At the end of the day, and he was playing very good for Porto coming into the tournament. He's a very good goalkeeper. This Portugal team is just, I think it's a little bit too much for Switzerland to handle. They're just not they don't have the firepower to keep up, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's most of the points I agreed on. Yeah.
So, unless you have anything else to say, I think we can move forward to the next preview that we have.
Yeah, I think that wraps that one up.
So, the next preview, this potentially, coming into the tournament, these are the favorites. Brazil were the the clear favorites. They were the clear favorites. In the betting coming into the tournament, Brazil, that was them. They had such high expectations. It was pretty much win the World Cup or bust. Let's be honest. This Brazil team, everyone, the fans, they expect to win this World Cup. Do I believe that? Obviously, we said that in our predictions. Go back and watch that if you haven't seen it. But so Brazil, they're going to play South Korea. It's not going to be an easy game. I'll go ahead and pass this one off to you. What do you expect for this game against South Korea for Brazil?
I had this one being very close. I mean, South Korea had played very well, and it's surprising because Heung-min Son has not been playing that well either. He's been on poor form for Tottenham, and it's been a down year. I mean, after coming off a historic season by his standards, it's hard to follow that one up with another outstanding one. But that just shows the quality of the South Korean side. I mean, they're just so well rounded in most facets of the game. I mean, they're well coached, they're well set up defensively. I think they're going to give Brazil a real hard time. And I have this one. I got this one 2-1. 2-1 for Brazil. And I think it's going to come down to because it's going to probably start off with Brazil scoring one, South Korea getting a tying goal before half, and then it starts off that second half with Brazil getting the lead back again and holding it. Because, I mean, this Brazil team still has a very good foundation. I mean, Casemiro's been playing well. They still have Alisson. They have, Vinny. Hopefully they get Neymar back. And they still have, there's through Brazil. I mean, this is what they were picked to be the favorites. And it's just the quality is going to be too much for South Korea. It's going to be close. South Korea is going to, they're going to have this is something that not to be disappointed of. I mean, you'd be losing to the favorites of this entire tournament.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not really much you can, look down upon. So, I got Brazil getting by 2-1.
Obviously, coming into the match, in my predictions, I said that Brazil would be able to get past, South Korea. But I think South Korea are going to be very, very difficult to break down. And that's so far from all of the Brazil games I've seen. they've struggled to break down teams, and it's kind of, head scratching in a way because you look at how dynamic this attack is. You would think that they would be able to break down teams potentially better than any other team in the World Cup because of how strong this attack is. Obviously, they haven't had Neymar except for the Serbia game, but if you want to just use the Serbia game because that's the only game they've had Neymar, it took them till the 60th minute to get that goal. And it was through Richarlison, and it was pretty much like a tap in, and then he was able to score the worldy, potentially goal of the tournament.
Yeah.
But they have not quite fired the way that I expected them to. It took a Casemiro screamer, to get the win in the second match, and then obviously, Cameroon, even though it was the B team, they were able to beat them. So this
That
Brazil
that that
team,
that B team was very good. I
oh yeah,
mean,
no, of course, that's yeah, no, but it kind of shows the quality of Brazil that's their
yeah,
B team, but that was still a very quality team, and that's kind of shows that their depth. And let's just say Neymar isn't able to go, Martinelli is gonna have to step in, and Martinelli, he had a good game, but he lacked finishing, and that's my main thing with Brazil. They've created a lot of chances, but they have not been very good at finishing them so far. And I think that kind of bodes well in South Korea's favor because the blueprint to succeed against Brazil is there now. We've seen it used in this World Cup. You're going to have to play very defensive, and you're going to just have to hope Brazil, aren't clinical on the day, and they have not shown the ability to be super clinical. And I expect it to kind of continue in this game. But with that being said, I don't know if South Korea is going to be able to create enough chances to win the game. I think that they can hold Brazil. They might be able to, hold Brazil to maybe even one goal. But are they going to be able to score a goal and win the game or equalize against Brazil? That's where it's going to be tough. Obviously they have a world class player in Son, but then you look at the rest of this team. They're good players, but are they going to be able to string together enough possession and string together enough passes in the final third to break down a Brazilian defense that is very, very strong? In the center, I would say, because one main concern for Brazil coming into the tournament was their fullbacks. They are not quite on par with the rest of the squad. And coming into this match, Brazil against Cameroon, Alex Telles picked up a knock. He's injured, and I don't think he's going to be able to play because it's like a calf strain. I don't know if he's going to be able to play against South Korea. Alexandro, the starter, he's been injured with a muscle injury as well. So I don't know who's playing left back for Brazil.
They're literally going
to
to play Danny Alves. Danny Alves is going to play.
Yeah,
he's gonna play. He played today.
Exactly, but the problem is, Dani Alves, he's not a left back anyway. But Dani Alves is going to have to play because Danilo, their right back, is also injured.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm not
so
gonna play
Danilo
left back.
is
He's gonna
injured.
play right back.
Danilo is injured at the right back, so Dani Alves is gonna have to step in. And if you watch the Cameroon game, look, Dani Alves, arguably the greatest right back of all time, you could say. But this guy is not it anymore. He was getting absolutely cooked. Toko Ekambi from Cameroon,
40 years old.
Toko Ekambi was looking like prime Ronaldinho out there today. So that is a concern because I think it's going to be Son versus Dani Alves.
Oh my God.
That is going to be a concern.
That's not good.
That is South Korea's hope because their best player happens to play, left wing, and Dani Alves is going to be guarding Heung-min Son, who hasn't had an amazing World Cup, but he's on his day, he can beat anybody. On his day, he can do it. He's one of the best wingers in the world on his day. You just
just look at last season, how he played last season.
I think he won the Golden Boot in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think he tied.
He tied for it. Exactly. So, on his day, he's a world beater. So South Korea, they have a chance in this game, because of the injuries, because Neymar might not be 100% fit, because Brazil has been firing at the attacking end of the field like I expected them to. This is not going to be an easy game. And, all that considered, I still have to back Brazil just because I think that their quality, even though they haven't been firing, and I don't think they're going to fire, they're not just going to all of a sudden step onto the field and bang in 5 goals. I don't see that happening. It's going to be very, very close. I expect them to win this game 2-1. I think it's going to be very tight. And, I think Son does get his goal, because of the fact he's going against Dani Alves.
Dani Alves.
And I don't know who's playing left back for Brazil, genuinely. I don't. Both of their left backs are hurt. I don't know who's playing left back.
Yeah, they might just shove Militao there. I mean, out of position. I really don't know what they're going to do.
And that's,
Play
you know,
would they play a 3 in the back? Would they do that? I don't know.
Tite has his work
I
cut out
would
for him.
consider it. At
I
this
would
point, I would
consider it,
consider, yeah.
but I don't know if they've ever really worked on that. I don't know if they're, obviously they still have
Yeah.
world-class players, but tactics are very important, especially you don't wanna maybe go into a winner-take-all game against South Korea, who are look, one of the things I'll say about South Korea is that they have chemistry together. They are so strong as a unit. If Brazil come out and they play a new formation because they have to because of the injuries, that to me, that seems like advantage South Korea. Because they're going to be playing same old South Korean style football, 4-2-3-1, like they've been playing the whole tournament. And they know what they're doing, they know what they're good at, and they're going to stick to their guns. I don't know if I can say the same about Brazil because they're going to be swapping in, rotational players. They got injuries, they're playing a new formation. All of these things make me think that an upset might be on the cards here. I would love to predict it. And part of me wants to because I'm kind of talking myself into it the more that I say it. But I still, given the quality that's going to be on the pitch, and I'm going to assume Neymar is going to be able to play the full 90, this game could end up going to extra time. It's going to be very, very tight. But like I said, Brazil 2-1, just because, the quality that they're still going to have on the field. They still have some injuries, but look at this. Look at this squad. Look how good it is. The midfield, the attack, the defense. It's very strong. They have to find a way to win this game at the end of the day. Look, South Korea, they're a very solid team, but if Brazil go out to South Korea, it's not going to be good for them.
Oh
It'd
my
be a
god.
failure. It'd be a failure.
Absolutely. It's,
So,
Brazil.
so it's not like you. I like the kind of percentage chance thing you were doing earlier. If I had to put a percentage chance, I'm going to say 75-25. But I think 25%.
75%. I mean, that's pretty that's pretty, big chunk for Brazil.
Well, because at the end of the day, they're the favorites. They're Brazil, but this could very easily, look, if like I said, if all of the things that I was saying weren't in place, it's probably kind of like a 90-10. Like it's kind of a clear cut and dry. But because Brazil aren't going to be firing quite the way they want to, they got injuries. I give South Korea a 25-30% chance of winning this game, and that's a pretty hefty chunk. It's football; anything can happen.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. Well, I mean, unless you had anything else to say on that game, I think we should move right into the next one. What you said could be the game of this round: Morocco versus Spain. And I'll pass it off to you since I brought up the question. What's going to be your thoughts going into this game? What do you think is going to happen? Morocco versus Spain.
Well, like I said in my prediction, when we did the full round of 16, I expect Morocco to be able to sneak by and get a win here, which would be obviously remarkable, for Morocco. I doubt they've ever made the quarterfinals. I don't think they have in their history.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that. Correct me if I am wrong in the comments. I don't know, but I don't think they have. So I think that, Morocco, they're obviously firing on great form. If you really think about it, they beat Belgium 2-0, which, even though Belgium aren't, on top of the world anymore, they're still a quality team with quality players, and they were able to beat Canada, and they were able to get a 0-0 draw against Croatia. So they have a good attack. I think that their attack is going to be able to pose problems for this Spanish defense, because Hakim Ziyech is firing better than I've ever seen him for Chelsea so far. He's looking like
Or you wish he played like that for club.
Well, I do. Well, like, he doesn't quite get the chances for Chelsea, unfortunately, that I think he should, but that's neither here nor there. For Morocco right now, he's turning back the clock to the Ajax Ziyech, and he's turning into somebody who can wreck games, who can get everybody involved, who can play, pings across the field, switch it. He can cross the ball amazingly. He's a set piece master, you could say. And he's going to pose a lot of problems for the Spanish defense. And, they have a lot of other quality players. Obviously their defense is very strong. Hakimi and Mizraoui playing as the fullbacks. They have very, very strong fullback play. And, they have a Premier League proven center back, Saiss, who played for Wolverhampton, and then Bunu, who plays a goalkeeper in La Liga. He's obviously a very solid goalkeeper. And, my thing with Spain is, they're solid. Obviously, they play the Spanish way. They always Spain is always going to hold possession. They're always going to be able to win that possession battle. But what are they going to do with the possession? Are they going to be able to create the clear-cut chances in front of goal, or are they just going to kind of pass it sideways and cross the ball in and hope? And I think that's what it's going to be, more of the latter. Spain is obviously going to win the possession battle here, but is Morata going to be able to, you know, score that goal? Because who is scoring that goal for Spain right now? Because, you know, their midfield trio, is solid, but there's not really many goals coming from Pedri, Busquets, and Gavi. So it's not really coming from the midfield. Pedri, he can get a goal. Gavi can get a goal, but I'm not going to the bank and betting my house on
Yeah.
it. And Iñaki Williams, or no, it's not even Iñaki Williams, it's Nico
No, sorry.
Williams, with his
Yeah,
brother.
Nico Williams.
Is he gonna? I don't quite bank him. Asensio, Ferran Torres, I don't know, man. They just don't quite have the attacking firepower for me. Fati is not quite firing like you would have hoped. They just don't quite have the attacking firepower for me. Dani Olmo is a good player, but basically they're kind of hoping Morata can score. If Morata doesn't score, I don't know who's scoring for the Spanish national team.
Yeah.
And that's my thing with them. They are reliant on their goals to come from Morata. And I just don't know if that's going to work. And, their defense, look, Pau Torres, he's a quality center back, but they have Rodri playing center back. Center back.
Rodri playing center back.
And then, they Azpilicueta picked up an injury, so I don't think he's going to be able to play. And, they have Balde, who plays for Barcelona. He's a young, up and rising left back. I think Jordi Alba is going to get back into that team. It's very 50-50. This game it's one of the games that coming into it, I don't think you can really predict, because Spain, they haven't quite super looked convincing, and Morocco have. But on paper, Spain still have so many world-class players, you would say. But given the fact that I think form is so important and momentum is so important, that's why I give the edge to Morocco to be able to get this done, because I think they're going to have the best player on the field. And right now, on form, Hakim Ziyech is the best player on the field. And then they have a very solid defense. And I think anytime you have the best player on the field, you have a chance to go win that game. And I think it's going to be very close. I think this game will go to extra time, in my opinion. It's going to be like 1-1, go to extra time. And I honestly, I think Morocco will probably going to win this on pens.
Okay. That's fair. I had the same outcome as you, but just a little bit of a different way of getting there. I think Morocco has just been on a high, coming off winning their group that no one really expected them to even make it out of, let alone win it. And Spain has looked lackluster. I mean, they haven't looked like the Spain that we expected. Maybe we looked at the team. It's a little bit more young in the midfield. We thought it'd be a more vibrant attack, and that's not what we've seen. I mean, Ansu Fati, Ferran Torres, even Marco Asensio, people we thought that we maybe see a little bit of flair in the attack, haven't been able to bring that for this Spanish side.
Yeah, not at
all. even with Pedri and Gavi, the midfield hasn't looked as dominant as we would expect it to be. And running up against a fire hot Morocco side, I think they're both heading in the opposite directions. I think Spain started out high and then started to creep down in form, and Morocco's only been coming up in form. So I got Morocco winning this match 2-1 as well as I think I picked it the same way for opposite for Brazil, the 2-1. But I think they're going to be able to hang in there. Spain's going to be able to hang in there for the full 90. I mean, they can. They're a competent side, but they're just lacking the finishing. They just don't have that finished product. I mean, this has been a problem for Spain for almost forever. So, I mean, since they
lost David Villa.
Yeah, since the David Villa days, man. Like it's been tough. I mean, there hasn't been a lot of really life-changing strikers. I mean, what Torres maybe, but but they're around the same time. David Villa, so yeah, and ever since then, they just haven't really been able to get those wingers, those true wingers. They've been able to produce so many midfielders. I don't get it. It's like they just have a factory of midfielders. They can always spring them out, pop them out. But when it comes to attacking side, like wingers and strikers, Spain's always been lacking that. And I mean, this year is no different. So I mean, it's going to play into the fact that I think Morocco they're going to have the best player. They're going to have Hakim Ziyech, who's been in crazy form, and I think he's going to be enough to lead this team into the next round.
Yeah, obviously, I agree with that. I think Ziyech is going to he's going to have a good game, and I think he will, because he's playing like a man possessed for his country right now. And you have to tip your cap, and hopefully as a Chelsea fan, hopefully he can keep this form going when he comes back, because God, Chelsea, we need something, bro. Hopefully Ziyech can keep
Need
this going.
something.
Yeah. But if unless you have anything else to add, I think it'd be a good segue to move on to the final game of that we're going to preview here, and one of the few games that we actually disagreed on, in our predictions. We disagreed on how this game was going to go, and I can totally see why. Well, let me introduce the game: Japan versus Croatia. It's going to be a very interesting game, and I can see why you picked Japan, and I want to get a little bit more in depth of it. So I want to hear, you obviously are backing Japan. Let me hear your thoughts and expectations coming into this game.
I think it mostly has to come down to who's has the most form right now. And Croatia have played well. I mean, they've been no slouch at all, but they are not the team that they were last World Cup. And a lot of their best players are highly on the back end of their careers. And I just don't think they have the engines to keep up with Japan. I think Japan have came in here and they shocked a lot of people about how they played and how high intense football they like to play. And that the fact that they're never out of it, that they can go 1-0 down and they still know that whatever happens, we can pull this out. I mean, they went down to Germany and Spain. I mean, Germany and Spain led in both the games that Japan won. That just shows the mentality that's being instilled into this team, that it's never over. And that's when you see that, I always take a dog. And that's what this Japan team is. They don't quit, and they they really believe, this team really believes that they could beat anybody.
Mhm.
They could beat Croatia, and they're going to go out there and they're going to do whatever they can to beat Croatia. I think they're going to outplay them in a lot of the outlets of this game. I mean, they're going to be more electric on defense because they're set up well defensively, and attacking wise, they're always able to just put themselves in the right positions to strike. I mean, they can catch you on a counter. I mean, they can somewhat break you down, and I don't know if Croatia can break down this Japanese defense. And I mean, Modric is going to have his hands full to try and keep up with these Japanese players. I mean, maybe Modric of 10 years ago could like maybe keep up with some of these players, but they're always running. These guys don't stop. So I
Yeah.
got Japan winning this game. I would say I think I got them winning 1-0.
Wow. Yeah, I can see that. It obviously, I think this is going to be a very close game, a very intense game. Obviously, I backed Croatia to win this game. Part of the reason so is because I think, they still have that pedigree coming from last World Cup. They know how to win in the knockout stages. But obviously, you mentioned that this Japanese defense is very strong, and I 100% agree. I think that this is going to be a very close game, and it's going to be low scoring because both of these defenses are very strong. Croatia have, if not one of the best center backs in the tournament right now. Gvardiol, I don't know exactly how to say his name, right? Josko Gvardiol, but from Leipzig, and we knew that he was a very up and coming young talent coming into the tournament, and he has done nothing but increase that price tag. And I think Chelsea are looking to sign him. A lot of other clubs are as well, based on how good he's been playing. I think he was man of the match against Belgium, as a center back, because that ended up 0-0. But Belgium, the only goal, not Belgium, Croatia, the only goal they conceded was the first minute one that kind of came out of nowhere against Canada. They held Morocco to a 0-0, and also they were 0-0 against Belgium. So their defense is obviously very strong. I could anticipate it being similar like that against Japan. I think it's going to be both sides very defensive. And I think that kind of, is what both teams are expecting. I could see this game going to extra time very easily. I don't see many goals in it. And I just kind of back Croatia. I think they're going to have a little bit more of the possession. They're going to hold the ball a little bit more. And, Kramaric has had a great tournament, in my opinion. He's been kind of the main talisman for this Croatian attack that isn't quite, that good by any stretch. They have Perisic, who he's kind of, he's not washed, but
He's
he's
a
on
bit,
the
yeah,
back
he's
end of
getting
his
close. He's on
career.
the back end.
Kramaric, who, he's been the talisman for me. And then Marco Levaya, I don't quite, yeah, I don't know. I think he's from the Croatian league. I'm not quite backing him, to be honest. So all things considered, I don't know if this Croatian attack is going to be able to, light up this Japanese team. But you predicted a 1-0 win for Japan. I kind of expected it to be the exact same, but the opposite. I would expect a 1-0 Croatia win. I don't know if this Japanese attack will be able to score on this Croatian defense, which for me, this Croatian team is priding itself on its defense, and it's looking like a complete brick wall. You can't really get by it. And I don't know if Japan are going to be able to, score that goal, but the thing is, if Japan come into this match and they score first, they score early, they just score it all. They score that first goal. It's going to be tough, I think, for Croatia. I think the first goal in this match, there might only be one goal in the match, like
Yeah.
we both predicted. But whoever does score the first goal, I think is going to have a huge, huge advantage. And obviously, that's kind of a, it's not even a take per se, because obviously you could say whoever scores first is always going to have an advantage. But in this particular match, when I think both defenses are so strong and tough to break down, if somebody is able to get the first goal and get it kind of quickly, it's going to shift this match and it's going to change the way it's played. And I back Croatia with their pedigree, led by Luka Modric. This midfield is so good. Modric, Brozovic, Kovacic. I expect them to be able to control the game. And, just Japanese midfield and the rest of this team might kind of run laps around them. But when in possession, Croatia, I think they're going to have the better of the possession. I think obviously the better of the chances because of this possession. And I back them to find a way to get the ball in the back of the net at some point and get the win. And then I back this defense to continue on the form that they've been on, led by Gvardiol, and ultimately, push them forward to the next round. Probably going to play Brazil, but South Korea, like we said, they are going to be a tough test.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever comes out of this game, they have another tough game coming their way.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. I mean, I can't really wait. I mean, they're not the games are not too far from now. I mean, from the time we're recording this, they're only a couple hours away,
Let's
and
take
it's
an
gonna
hour.
be yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. And you know, I'm gonna see if our predictions, hold up.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we in a way, we're both kind of rooting for the same teams, obviously, because we have the same final.
Yeah,
So if Portugal go out earlier, Argentina get knocked out to
that's
Australia. Our
not
bracket,
good.
our
Yeah, that's
bracket
not
is
good.
mud. It's absolutely mudded if that does happen. Obviously, I doubt that will happen, but it's football at the end of the day, and it's one of those things. I don't think obviously neither of us necessarily predicted. You could say Spain going out is a big team, big surprise per se, but it's
Yeah,
in knockout. Like there's gonna be a big upset, like a big upset,
there has to be. Yeah, there
and
always is.
that's what it's so hard to predict. And obviously, I don't know who it's gonna be. If I had to, honestly, and I kind of hinted at this, and I just want to say this: if I had to put money on an upset, I think Brazil might go out. I kind of said it. I picked Brazil to win, but if I had
But
to,
you only gave like 70 like 70% splits, man. I mean, that wasn't a very big. You're because you were like, oh, I'm almost convincing myself into it, but you didn't give very big of a split. And I mean, I gave it,
25-30%.
that's the 25 30. I gave a good like 40% shot, 35-40. I mean, I really think that it's going to
A
be very
chance.
close. I mean, shit. Brazil could go in there and just absolutely thrash them, and then
They
we,
could.
we
They
just
could.
look like Muppets right now talking about this. But look, I'm gonna be the guy that if it does become a really close game and it does come down to the wire, I'm gonna raise my hand and say, hey, I thought that. I thought that was gonna
Well,
be that. I'm not
you
gonna,
you you best believe, maybe not in the next episode, but maybe probably like I don't know how we're gonna schedule the episodes here with these knockout stages, because we want to be covering pretty much all of these games and talking about our
yeah,
thoughts, because they're gonna be the biggest matches, and these are gonna be such high intensity close games that we want to talk about. These are all big teams. These are the best teams in the world at the end of the day. They all deserve to be talked about and get their praise if warranted. But whenever this Brazil match does take place, you best believe if it's a close game or if South Korea shock the world and make it happen, you best believe I'm gonna insert a clip of us predicting it in a sense. We didn't fully predict it,
innocent.
but we said it. We knew we both knew it was gonna be close. But
Yeah.
if Brazil, they come out and they absolutely spank them 4-0, I'm not including that clip.
We're burying a clip. We'll just forget
Hopefully,
that happened.
hopefully everyone just forgets it happened.
Forget that happened.
But obviously, it's going to be very interesting to see how these knockout games play out. Obviously, at the time of recording, it's right before the Netherlands, USA, and Argentina, Australia match takes place. We'll probably be dropping another episode relatively soon in the next couple of days to talk about these first couple of matches that are taking place. We'll see what happens. But if you don't have anything else to say about that, we can go ahead and wrap this one up.
Yeah, I mean, other than the fact that we'll probably try and record. I mean, today we're recording on a Friday. We'll try and record Sunday, and that will probably be it for until possibly I think next Tuesday. We are taking that vacation, but that does not mean we'll stop content. We'll still be pushing out our reactions, in short little instances on our social media. So that's why it's important that you guys get down to the description, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, get all those so you can just stay connected, stay into keep the discussion. We want to see your guys' reactions to our reactions to what we were predicting.
Yeah, exactly. So check us out on those social media platforms. Hit the subscribe button. We've got the banner taken across here to subscribe. Subscribe if you haven't already, so that you can see some of these takes that we're going to give and our initial reaction to some of these games, because we're going to be uploading YouTube shorts, and we're going to be uploading probably some mini videos talking about some of these games. So stay tuned for that. If you got anything else to say before we wrap this one up.
I got one last thing, because we're probably not going to be able to get to talk about it because we are going on vacation when it's happening. I'm wearing this shirt. My boy Teofimo Lopez is fighting December 10th against Sandro Martin. Back home, back in New York. I'm buzzing for this. This is literally the only pay-per-view I'm gonna buy this entire year. I hate buying pay-per-views, but it's it's for my boy.
You gotta buy it for Teo.
It's for the takeover. It's for the takeover. And
if you're seeing this, we're trying to get you on for the interview.
If I'm a betting man, I'm betting a knockout round 5. This is a world title elimination fight. So when he wins this, he's going to be in the shot for world title already. So already going back to the top. No surprise, never left. That's the only thing I want to say. I want to give him a shout out because we're not going to really get much of a chance to talk about it. But
yeah,
I'm going to be buzzing December 10th.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, we follow him on the social media platforms. Some of the things that he does is remarkable. I back him as well. I mean,
yeah, shoot it straight, boys. Gotta back up. Gotta back him up.
Yeah, we eventually, hopefully one day, we get him on here for this interview. We've been trying to make that happen. Teo, we need you. But
yeah, I'll gotta give a shout out to Chino as well for getting me this shirt. This shirt's fucking dope as fuck.
Is he going to the fight?
I don't think so. I don't think he told me.
Damn.
I don't think so.
He ain't going to New York.
Dude, I mean, his schedules. I mean, we have normal working schedules. Not all of us can be world champion boxers and shit, but 100%. we'll be here holding it down in Florida. I mean, oh my god, we've literally been begging Teo to come fight in Miami. We want him to come back to his second home. I mean, he's a New York man, but gotta show Miami some love. We want to see, but I think he's saving a big fight for Miami. I think that's what he's saving, a big headliner, but. With Tank and Ryan Garcia. And, I saw a bit of chirping on Twitter from Devin Haney. Devin Haney was throwing little shots. Look, listen, Devin Haney doesn't want none of this. Look, these guys, we're almost going off in the boxing thing, but I just have to get this off my chest. These guys are literally, all they know how to do is chirp on Twitter, man. Like, I just want to see one of these guys fight Lomachenko. I want to see them fight Lomachenko. Like, Devin Haney's been talking about, like Teo's loss to Kambosos, like everything in the world against Teo in that fight. I mean, he basically almost died going to that fight, but to hold that really against them is kind of like a head scratcher. Like, look, Devin Haney, fight Lomachenko so we can see if you beat Lomachenko pretty well, then yeah, we'll give you some praise. But realistically, he's looked mediocre against Kambosos. Like, I mean, come on, man. I'm not going to give him too much credit until he starts to fight these top guys. We want to see him fight Teo. We want to see him fight Tank, and we want to see him fight Ryan Garcia. But that wraps it up for my boxing spiel, my little debacle with boxing. But December 10th, got to stay tuned. It's always a show when Teo's fighting.
Yeah, we'll probably be talking, for example, as soon as this Ryan Garcia Tank Davis fight continues to ramp up and get closer, we're definitely going to be talking about that and hopefully
Yeah.
we'll be able to talk about Teo's fight, once it happens in some capacity, because it's blockbuster. We got to see it. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But now that spiel is all over, you ready to fully wrap this one up.
Yep. That's all I had to get off my chest.
So we appreciate the continued support. This is episode 32. We continue to grind out some more episodes, and then obviously we go on vacation. So maybe a little bit of a break per se, but the content is going to still be pumped out regardless. It's just not going to be a new episode for that little 5-day
Yeah,
span. Or whatever.
yeah, that 5 day span.
But with all that being said, we appreciate the continued support. This was episode 32 of the Shooter Straight podcast. It'll be interesting to see how all these World Cup games finish out here. But I'm your co-host Zach.
I'm your co-host G.
And we're going to be watching the World Cup in a couple hours here. We'll see y'all. Peace.